I'm about to watch How Gambling Controls Sports in America. I don't really know what we're gonna get into, but we about to hop right into it. Let's get into it. Frizz, I'm not drunk. You told me in Miami that you had a side piece. All right, let's go.
Fair offer. I think I'm gonna take it.
The updated Super Bowl odds. The Rams as the favorites.
Yeah, that's right.
Presented by FanDuel. DraftKings.
BetMGM Sportsbook.
Fanatics Sportsbook.
For most of American sports history, gambling was something the leagues wanted.
Before we get into it, you cannot watch TV without seeing one gambling ad. When I was a kid, I don't think that was not a thing. Like, gambling has, what is it? Exponentially climbed since I was a kid. I'm gonna be honest. In the last 4 to 5 years, it's gone insane.
To keep as far away as possible from the games. But today, it's everywhere. The odds aren't just in casinos anymore. They're on the screen during the game, on your phone, in your group chats, and increasingly, they're part of how sports are talked about in the first place. This didn't just make sports more like...
I didn't know, like, during the games, I started peeping it. It's like, I know we're 30 seconds in the video. Don't say anything. Be quiet. I don't know if you noticed, there's been a rampant, like, they will spam the odds during the game. That never used to be a thing. I never used to see ads of sports books and gambling before this, I'm gonna be honest.
Casino. It changed what sports are for.
What? Green apple looking ass? Why you have 30 perks? You were supposed to go over, You work for Vegas.
The spread of gambling didn't stop in sports. Now you can bet on elections, on interest rates, on wars, on politician deaths, on the future of entire countries. So how did we get here? For most of the 20th century, gambling was treated as one of the biggest threats to sports, and for good reason. When money is tied to every single part of a sports game, the question is no longer just about who won. The question is, can we trust what we're watching? For a century, gambling wasn't considered.
Every athlete, I swear, might have some sort of, not every athlete, there's a lot of athletes that are gambling as well. So it's like they are trying to make money. So they're going to take whatever gets the best odds and they're going to do what it takes to hit their parlay. If I'm an athlete, I'm doing the exact same thing, bro. Why would you not? You feel what I'm saying? That's free bread until you get caught.
Fan engagement. It was a cancer, the only thing that could actually kill the American miracle of professional sports. In 1919, 8 members of the Chicago White Sox took a payout to tank the World Series. They didn't just lose, they sold the game. And when the Black Sox scandal broke, it broke the spell. It made the fans realize that the drama they were paying for might just be a script written by bookies. As a result, in the 1920s, Major League Baseball created a brand new position with sweeping authority over the game, the commissioner. And the man chosen for the job was...
What do commissioners do? Like, genuinely, what does Adam Silver do other than make certain rules and announce the players' names at the NBA draft? What does Adam Silver do, the NBA commissioner? Please, somebody tell me exactly what his role entails. What is his main focus as the NBA commissioner?
Federal Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis. Landis understood something fundamental about professional sports. It wasn't just about whether or not the game was actually fixed, it was about whether or not the fans believed the game was fixed. Because once fans stop trusting the outcomes of games, the entire system collapses. Landis swung the axe. He banned all 8 White Sox players for life, even the ones a jury had acquitted. Nationally, it was viewed as one of the most despicable things in all of America. The message was simple. Being near a gambler was a death sentence for your career. Gambling was an existential threat to the game itself. But the money was always there, lurking in the shadows. By the 1950s, the fix had moved to college hoops. This was the era of the point shave. Mobsters didn't need players to lose the game. They just need them to adjust the score, to keep it close, to win by 4 instead of 10. It was a subtle, greasy way to steal from the public.
But I wonder how can you stop this? How can you stop subtle gambling? I understand the point blank, like, obviously there's egregious stuff, like how Terry Rozier and the dude got caught. But how do you stop subtle gambling from happening? Is it possible to stop subtle gambling from happening? I don't know. I don't think so.
turned the locker room into a satellite office for organized crime. The pattern continued decades later. In 1978 and 1979, Boston College basketball players were recruited into another point-shaving scheme. The operation was run by mob associate Henry Hill, later immortalized in the movie Goodfellas. And then came Pete Rose, Charlie Hustle, the man with more hits than anyone in history. When it came out that he'd been betting on his own team, the leagues didn't care about his legacy. They nuked it. The punishment sent another unmistakable message. Even the greatest players in baseball history weren't bigger than the integrity of the sport. By 1992, this gambling is poison mindset became federal law. Congress passed the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, essentially making sports betting illegal in almost every corner of the country. And the leagues, they were the loudest ones cheering for it. Their logic was ironclad. If the fans think the game is rigged, the stadium will be empty. And for most of the 20th century, gambling was treated like poison to sports. It was kept as far away as humanly possible. But then something changed. America didn't suddenly decide that it loved gambling again. Instead, something else developed in our culture. Fantasy sports. In the 1990s and early 2000s, fantasy sports exploded online. Millions of fans started managing their own teams, tracking stats, analyzing matchups, building lineups. Fantasy sports did something subtle but profound. It trained fans to think about sports the way general managers.
Does fantasy have money
Players
tied to
become
it?
Assets,
Like
games
the old
become
fantasy?
data. Before fantasy sports, most fans watched games with a simple question: did my team win? Fantasy changed that question. Now it was, did my player hit his stats? Did my running back score? Did my pitcher strike out enough batters? Your emotional investment shifted from the outcome of the game to the numbers inside the game. Fantasy sports totally rewired the brain of sports fans. A new belief started to emerge. If you knew the stats, if you knew the matchup, if you had some inside information, you could beat the system. As someone who loves and plays fantasy sports every single year, it also taught us that our knowledge of sports could be monetized. And then in the 2010s, the idea evolved into something much closer to gambling: daily fantasy sports. Companies like DraftKings and FanDuel realized they didn't need a whole season to hook you. They could do it on a single Sunday. They weren't gambling platforms, not league.
So this is, see, it all starts off with something small, bro. And this is what I'm calling it right now. If the FBI is scanning all of YouTube to find something, this might be what they're looking for. This is what's gonna happen with AI, bro. There's little nuggets of AI. They slowly punch it at you, punch it at you, punch it at you. And then it bleeds into what gambling has become, bro. Yeah. AI is about to. Don't believe me, bro. Don't believe me, bro.
Legally, there were games of skill. It was a legal loophole you could drive a truck through. And it didn't feel like pulling a lever at a slot machine. When you did well in fantasy sports, it felt like you were just being smarter than everyone else. At the same time, another piece of culture was evolving: sports video games. Games like FIFA and NBA 2K began integrating loot boxes, randomized reward systems where players spent real money for a chance at better players. Some versions even looked like slot machines: bright lights, spinning wheels, random rewards. For younger fans especially, sports and gambling mechanics were slowly becoming intertwined. By 2010, the culture was practically begging for sports gambling. So when the legal barrier to sports gambling finally disappeared, the culture was ready. The Supreme Court finally caught up with the reality on the ground. In Murphy versus NCAA, they tossed out the federal ban on sports gambling. The wall that Landis and Congress had built was demolished. Within just a few...
But at this point, I want to understand, why do certain states, even like they're about to go into the states that have got rid of the ban, why do certain states still not allow for it? Like, I don't understand it.
2 years, sports books spread across much of the United
It's like,
States.
you want to be that different?
Billions of dollars started flowing through the industry. Betting apps appeared on millions of phones, and the leagues that once treated gambling like poison started partnering with sports books themselves. But the real shift wasn't just that sports gambling was suddenly legal. It was that it was absolutely everywhere and impossible to escape. Once gambling moved from the back rooms to the internet to the glass boxes that we all hold in our pocket, the DNA of how we actually watch sports started to completely mutate. For 100 years, if you wanted to put money on a sports game, you had to put in the work to actually do it. You had to find a guy or get on a plane to Vegas or walk into a smoky room with a stack of 20s.
Okay.
There was friction. You had to look another human being in the eye. But once gambling moved to smartphones, that friction disappeared. Now it was just one tap away. If the design feels familiar, it's because it is. It's taken from the casinos and social media and mashed together.
It basically takes the human, like a human interaction out, and you're just playing against the bookie. The bookie always wins. It doesn't matter what you think that you know, bro. I don't know. There's definitely people that understand it, but they also know certain things about the market that they just will never touch because of how volatile it is.
Into an app on our phone. You don't even need to get your bets in before the game starts because you can bet on it at any point it's playing. Live betting lets you gamble on every moment of the action. Instant deposits mean money can appear in your account in seconds, and features like same-game parlays encourage you to stack multiple bets together. The bright graphics, the constant updates, the endless opportunities to engage. But to me, the most surprising part about sports betting apps isn't the technology. It's the business model that it's actually built on. Because sportsbooks aren't really looking for people who can beat the system. They're looking for people who can't escape it. This is journalist Danny Fund, who wrote the book.
It's insane to think about, bro. They feed on people who get addicted, bro. They prey on people who get addicted to this kind of stuff. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna keep it a whole stack with y'all, bro. I got addicted, bro. But that's okay though, bro. And I deleted the app off my phone because I understood this before they really could get me lost. I started keeping track of what was really going on, and I really saw, I was like, bro, I'm not gonna be positive anytime soon. Yo, gang, let's pause the video. Why are you not subbed up? Like 90% of you guys, let's sub up, let's follow me on Twitch, and we have a good video. So why am I consistently putting money into this to then never get my money back? You feel me?
Everybody loses on the rise of sports gambling.
The idea is, let's profile people, how much you're depositing, when you're depositing, promotions you're playing. All of that stuff goes toward your profile, so we know what they're good at and stop taking those bets. But, you know, if you're a square on other sports or other styles of betting, the sky's the limit to what you can bet on.
One of the biggest misconceptions that I learned about sports gambling through the reporting of this video is that professional gamblers don't treat gambling like chance, like luck. They treat it like a quantitative math problem to solve. Sports betting apps sell this really powerful idea. If you know more about sports, you can beat the system. You can make more money than other people in your life. Isaac Rose Berman is a professional sports bettor.
This is not true because watch, it's true on occasions, but then you have nights like Bam Adebayo scoring 83 points. Brother, that will never happen again. I would have probably bet his under if I saw his actual line, bro. And that's the thing, bro. As much as you know about basketball, bro, certain things, bro.
Who specializes in tennis. He approaches gambling less like a fan and more like a financial trader.
If you can systematically beat the sportsbook, they will kick you out. If you are able to keep betting, it means that they have deemed you to not be good at this. FanDuel and DraftKings employ very smart people and pay them very large amounts of money with the sole purpose of figuring out who is good on their platform and kicking them out.
In other words, these apps aren't neutral marketplaces. They are designed to extract as...
Is that not illegal though? Like, I understand. It seems like in every circumstance, doesn't matter what field it is, if you can understand the system, if you can gamify the system to play it in your favor, nobody wants to see that for some reason. I get it, but I don't. It's like, what?
Much money as humanly possible. And once I learned that sportsbooks don't actually want professional gamblers, I learned something else that was absolutely fascinating. If you have an account that has a lot of sports gambling debt, you can actually sell it to a professional sports gambler so they can make money on the app themselves, because the sports apps think that the gambler associated with that account is someone who loses a lot, which gives professional gamblers a lot of room to make money before the apps realize what's actually happening. And the more you look into sports betting apps, the more it feels like the system.
But why not like on play some huge plays that you know you're gonna win, and then, like I'm talking about the professional gamblers. Why not play huge plays when you know you're gonna win and then just lose a bunch of small parlays? But I would imagine they would be able to detect what you're doing. Maybe.
The system is designed in very specific ways to produce very specific outcomes. And the idea that design shapes behavior actually applies to a lot of things beyond sports gambling. Most people think shaving irritation is just normal, that razor burn, tugging, redness is just part of the deal. But like a lot of narratives we accept, it's actually a design issue. Most modern cartridge razors flex. The blades pivot, they move, they deflect mid-stroke, so the angle changes while it's touching your skin. Some hairs get cut clean, others get pulled, and instead of fixing that problem, the industry just added more blades and lubrication strips. This video sponsor, Henson Shaving, took an opposite approach. They fully support the blade. When the blade is razors for the nice 3 years, legalizing sports betting didn't automatically make people comfortable with it. Something else had to happen first. It had to be normalized. And one of the biggest forces that helped do that was sports media itself.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app presented by FanDuel. Brought to you by our friends at ESPN Bet.
For decades, sports broadcasts avoided gambling almost entirely, but after legalization, the odds started appearing on screen. Pre-game shows began discussing point spreads, networks launched betting segments, entire shows were built around betting picks. But media companies didn't just talk about gambling, they started partnering with it. Networks launched sports books, broadcasters read gambling ads, superstars like LeBron James and commentators like Stephen A. Smith appeared in sportsbook commercials.
The idea that betting used to be something you did discreetly, like if you did it, you probably didn't want to draw attention to it among friends and family, and now your favorite columnist or podcast host or TV announcer is pushing gambling.
And while there was a massive change around the advertising of sports gambling, there was another major change as well that I noticed as a member of the sports media. The media changed how it actually talked about sports. It changed the language it used to talk about sports. Sports media began framing gambling as analysis. The spread became the line, betting odds became the market. A bet wasn't gambling. It was about finding value. Betting started to sound less like risk and a lot more like intelligence. If you knew sports, if you understood the numbers, if you studied the matchups, you could beat other people.
I think the biggest misconception is that they know ball. The misconception people have is that their sports knowledge is going to translate into betting success, right? They think they know ball and they don't, because your ball knowledge only matters if the market hasn't factored in that information, right? Like, you really think that your knowledge on, the plays that Patrick Mahomes is going to run is better than the sports books and better than the thousands of professional bettors who are doing this as their full-time job? Almost certainly not.
And of course, there was another reason why sports gambling took over sports media: money. The traditional sports.
If you were to do this professionally, at what point do you turn professional? That's my question for professional gamblers. At what point do you know, okay, I can do this for a living now without tanking yourself?
Media business was collapsing. Magazine revenue was disappearing, cable television was losing millions of subscribers, newsrooms were shrinking, and media companies were desperate, looking for new sources of income. Sportsbooks offered something very valuable for companies: a lot of advertising money. I can tell you from personal experience running this YouTube channel that sportsbooks pay far more money than other advertisers. Up to 5 or 6 times more than other advertisers. But there's a catch that benefits sports media a lot more than I initially anticipated.
All of these news outlets getting such generous commissions when you clicked on a link and signed up for a sports book. At the high point, making $500 or $600 for each person who went up and clicked a link and then signed up for a book. And then for the lifetime of that customer's use on the sports book, the outlet that referred them would get between 30 and 45% of their net losses. It's such a conflict of interest. Insane. Because you think the guy saying here's what to bet on is looking out for you.
And I know Disney and them are getting a bag off of this, bro.
Like, you're allies against the sports book. In reality, they're making all their money off your losses.
And the more people bet, the more consequences start to show up, not just in bank accounts, but in the lives of athletes themselves. Because once fans could bet on every moment of a game,
Gabby got a white guy. Yeah! I want Melissa to win.
Players themselves became part of the wager. The growth of sports betting is often talked about in how much money people make. But what doesn't show up in revenue charts and in stock reports is the effect that it actually has on the lives of people, both the athletes and the sports fans. For people struggling with gambling addiction, their relationship with gambling can slowly take over their entire life.
100%.
That's Robin,
100%.
who had thousands of dollars in sports gambling debt, is a recovering addict, and now runs a YouTube channel sharing his experiences.
When I saw sports betting, I saw it as a shortcut. I saw it as something that I could choose to do, that if I was just good enough at this thing, if I could just figure out how to beat this game that I know I'm not supposed to beat, but if I can figure it out, I don't have to work a normal job. I can be the man, I can travel the world, be my own boss, I can do whatever I want. it wasn't like I was outwardly like trying to lose friends or lose people in my life, but as people would stop being friends with you or with me rather, and I didn't care all that much. It just felt like, all right, well, bye.
I'm just gonna gamble more.
As long as I had my coping mechanism, my gambling, it didn't really matter what was happening.
And when a bet loses, the instinct is often the same. Try to win it back as quickly as possible. This is Stephen Delaney, a truck driver who lives in Long Island, who's a sports gambling addict and now hosts an addiction podcast. His addiction reached the point where he was taking loans out on his retirement fund.
Just had such low self-worth, and I felt like the only way I could feel like I was enough and I had value to my family and to my children was to provide a larger income. And I felt like I could do that through gambling. And it was just this rush of a feeling of like, yeah, I knew I could do it.
His house low-key looked crazy. Are we sure he took out loans?
And it gave me, in that moment, some self-worth where I said, I know about sports, I'm good at betting, I'm good at gambling.
And for many gamblers, the cycle starts the same, with an early win, a big payout, a moment that makes it feel like you've cracked the code. Daily Fantasy made the illusion even stronger because it didn't feel like a slot machine. It felt like strategy, research, roster building, something you could master. And slowly, for people like Steven, the bets just get bigger, the losses get harder to accept, and the cycle becomes self-reinforcing. You tell yourself you're not addicted, you're informed, and you know the sport, and you just need one more bet to get back to even. And the consequences of sports betting have been bigger on athletes than I anticipated it being. Lucas Giolito is an MLB veteran pitcher who has played for the Boston Red Sox, Chicago White Sox, and the Los Angeles Angels.
This gambling stuff get weird,
Venmo
brother.
requests where it's like, you owe me this amount of money because I bet this on you and you didn't finish my bet. And then I've actually received
Venmo requests is
I've received
crazy.
like money to my Venmo account, like small amounts where it's like, hey, thanks, man. You have your typical, you suck, you're washed, like get off the team. Like, great, that's fine. And then it will climb to like more personal attacks, talking shit about like personal.
But how are they getting their numbers and stuff? That's the weird piece about it. It's like you get so mad. How are you finding their numbers, their emails, their house address? These people are probably getting swatted as well, bro.
Things, whether it be me, my relationships, and then it gets into more like just nasty, like go kill. Yourself, or I got one after my last bad outing where it was like, I hope you and your family die. That was a good one. And then on very rare occasions, you'll receive direct threats, which those are the ones where it's like you want to take it a little bit more seriously. You'll report those up the chain.
Before the rise of sports betting apps, most fans simply rooted for their teams to win. Fans can bet on almost every moment inside a game. Strikeouts, rebounds, touches, missed shots, individual plays. These are all called prop bets, and they change something fundamental about how fans experience the game. Because when a bet loses, it's no longer just the team that lost, it's a specific player, which means athletes increasingly receive messages from bettors angry about losing money. And with that kind of culture, scandal is all but inevitable. In 2024, NBA player Jonte Porter was banned for life after an investigation found he had shared inside information with gamblers and manipulated his playing time to affect betting outcomes. Investigations have also touched players like Terry Rozier and coaches like Chauncey Billups and others across professional and college sports. Major League Baseball has investigated suspicious betting patterns tied to players like Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz. College sports, where athletes often earn little money and face enormous pressure, have long been vulnerable to gambling influence. And while sports gambling scandals aren't anything new, what has changed is the sports media environment that is supposed to keep these leagues and players accountable. When Pete Rose was banned from baseball, or when NBA referee Tim Donaghy was caught betting on games, sports journalism still had large investigative units.
I think we got to look at Adam Silver, bro, because there's probably still tons of NBA players that are gambling, bro, and I think they're giving him money, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. I think Adam Silver is who we need to investigate, bro.
Newsrooms devoted resources to digging into uncomfortable stories, and today, a lot of those resources are gone. Investigative shows like Outside the Lines and Real Sports have been scaled back. Publications like ESPN The Magazine have disappeared, and the economics of sports media have shifted towards something else: transactional coverage, breaking news, scoops. When the Terry Rozier scandal broke, ESPN had to remove a graphic advertising its sports betting platform so that it didn't look like they were advertising sports gambling as the news of a sports gambling scandal was breaking. And all of this creates this really uncomfortable reality that almost every single major sports media outlet is financially tied to the success and the legalization of sports gambling.
The fact that so many people in sports media are walking on eggshells when they talk about gambling and don't want to say the wrong thing that's going to embarrass an advertiser that's keeping their company afloat, or embarrass the leagues for doing business with those advertisers, or make them look like hypocrites for pushing gambling and then covering, the dangers involved with gambling. And hearing a former ESPN reporter say that in effect sports media is being bribed by all that advertising.
I've been in sports media for almost 15 years now, and I have a lot of friends in this industry that feel really uncomfortable with the tension at the center of it right now. They often have to promote sports gambling on their podcasts or their shows, but they don't like the effect that it's having on the industry. And at the same time, they feel like they can't push back because the people paying and signing their checks are getting money from these sports books. And so when stories around gambling and scandals around gambling emerge, they feel like they can't be as aggressive about it as they would have been maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Because so much of the industry that is supposed to report on sports gambling and its scandals is now funded by it. It's a huge reason why I don't take sports gambling sponsorships on this channel. It's the reason why this video can even exist in the first place. So if you want to support sports journalism without sports gambling sponsorships, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment and share it with a friend. And all of this raises a lot of difficult questions, because if the incentive to gambling keeps growing, the pressure on the integrity of these leagues keeps growing too. And the expansion of gambling hasn't stopped with sports, because now there's entirely new gambling markets emerging that allow people to not just bet on games, but on the future itself. Companies like Polymarket and Kalshi call themselves something different: prediction markets. They present percentages, which is easier to understand than sports odds. A market might ask a question like, will this candidate win an election? Will interest rates rise? Will a certain event happen before the end of the year? And the advertising slogan from these prediction markets is simple. They say that it's not gambling, that this is just a new source of information.
It's a market where people are trading against each other. There's no house. And the reason why people are flocking to prediction markets, especially Kalshi, is that our incentive as a company, we win when the customers win. We don't win when the customers lose. And that's a huge difference in the model.
But when you look a little bit closer, the reality is much more complicated. Prediction markets often present themselves as crowds of ordinary users trading on ideas, but many of the biggest players in these markets aren't casual users. They're professional traders.
So what there's things called market makers, which are often, either very rich people, very successful bettors, or sort of large institutions, often like your Susquehannas of the world, who basically say, okay, here's what we think the odds are, and we are going to offer bets on both sides. And they actually just function just like a sports book. Sometimes you are going to be betting against your peers or against normal people. In reality, a lot of the time, you're betting against large hedge funds, and there's actually, the pricing is never going to be the same. The odds on a sports book are basically always going to be identical to the odds on a prediction market, because if there was a significant
prediction market versus the actual thing. Let me see. What if? I guess we're using AI. That makes sense.
Divergence, then people would just arbitrage it and bet both sides to lock in a profit. I would much rather go up against a DraftKings trader making 60 grand a year than Susquehanna on Kalshi, right? They're much better at their job, and their job is to set accurate prices and make sure that they're on the opposite side of your trade. And this is a zero-sum game.
Prediction markets go way further than betting apps, because these markets can be about literally anything. And a lot of this raises a lot of really troubling questions, because if people can profit from events, The line between gambling and power starts to blur together. And prediction markets are moving quickly, partnering with celebrities, building political connections, seeking mainstream legitimacy. Even athletes have begun entering the space. One of the most surprising examples came from Giannis Antetokounmpo. The two-time MVP and face of the Milwaukee Bucks revealed he holds an equity stake in Kalshi. At first glance, it looks like another celebrity endorsement, but the timing raised a lot of suspicion. For months, the NBA rumor mill had been dominated by Giannis' own future. Would he stay in Milwaukee, request a trade? Prediction markets turned that speculation into something people could bet on. And as the speculation swirled, the prediction market for Giannis' next team on Kalshi skyrocketed. And so when the announcement came that Giannis owns part of a prediction market, the backlash was enormous. Let's take a moment to think about how insane this is. Giannis knows if he's going to ask for a trade, he's one of the only people on earth who truly knows what's going to happen. And at the same time, he's the part owner of a place where your money is being traded based on that very decision. The more chaos there is around Giannis' future, the more valuable his equity in Kalshi becomes. Thousands of trades, thousands of fees. And Giannis profits anytime anyone bets on his future, right or wrong. He's financially incentivized to keep the world guessing, to keep the rumors flying. And the NBA hasn't done anything about it. When asked about this at NBA All-Star Weekend, Adam Silver responded by saying,
"In the case of Giannis, from what I understand, it's a minuscule investment, much smaller than 1%.
Kalshi is worth $11 billion. Giannis is allowed to own up to 1% under NBA rules.
So
1%
how much
of Kalshi is worth $110 million. Half of a percent of Kalshi is worth $55 million. Giannis is no longer just participating in the game and in the drama of the NBA. He's making money every single time there's more chaos and speculation around his future. And what started with betting on games is now becoming way bigger. It's becoming a world where everything is a wager. The logic of sports betting is already spreading. During the Golden Globes broadcast, odds from the prediction market Polymarket were shown on the screen for who might win each award. And in politics, at one point, traders were betting on the exact length of a White House press briefing. When Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt ended the briefing just seconds before a key betting line, the market flipped instantly, prompting accusations online that someone with inside knowledge inside the White House had traded on the outcome and made money on it. Sportsbooks prove that fans could see sports as an opportunity to constantly make money. Prediction markets are trying to make the world feel as if every single moment, every single thing that happens is an opportunity to make money. Because every single moment in a sports game now has money attached to it, fans are starting to ask different questions about sports. It's not just, did my team win? It's, was that referee call real? Was that injury suspicious? Did that player leave the game early because of the score? Or was it because of a betting market? Sports have always depended on something fragile. Trust. Trust that what you see on the field is real. Trust that the players are competing on the field honestly. Trust that referees are calling what they see honestly. It's not always perfect, but before sports gambling, there were fewer opportunities to question this trust. And once that trust starts to erode, the meaning of these games starts to completely change. Recent polls show that fans are worried about the integrity of games and whether or not what they're seeing is real. And for a generation that has grown up with sports betting apps on the phone, sports is no longer something separate from sports betting. They're intertwined together. And the reason I think that sports gambling is a bigger problem than just in sports is because the issue isn't just about whether or not betting should exist or should be legal. It's about what happens when we make every single moment of our lives an opportunity to make money. Gambling has always been a part of sports, but something changed when betting stopped living on the margins and moved to the center of the experience. And once you start thinking this way, it doesn't just stop at sports. When you start putting a price tag on everything,
we're cooked. It's not gonna get any better. That was a lot longer than I thought it was. It was still smooth though. It opens your eyes to what's going on in the market, but it's calm though.